Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. This is your weekly Good Morning Comrade. Jeff and Robert here on the show with you right now. Robert,
It's me.
what's going on?
Everything's terrible. I'm really stressed out about Christmas. Like, I really don't want to I don't know. I just don't want to spend the time and the resources to go see my folks. And I know that sounds terrible that you only have so much time with your parents or whatever, but I can tell you right now I'm not feeling it. And most of it's like, I don't know, I've had a lot of stress coming from my car. I finally got my car back after getting a complete engine rebuild for something that's not my fault. Like, it was like a Volvo known thing a couple years ago, but Robert didn't know about it. So my engine got destroyed, and then so I had to pay all this money, and I had to borrow money to fix that. I'm paying that back, and then my car. I mean, this is a very political thing. Everything's political. That's if we ever have merch made, it'll just be my face saying everything's political. But everything is political. So, I mean, the whole reason I bought a Volvo is because they were Swedish tanks not that long ago, 20, 30 years ago.
They were the safest. They were always consistently viewed as the safest car, in the American market, essentially. They fell off.
No, I mean, safety-wise, they still have to pass. I'm kind of a Volvo fanatic. Safety-wise, they still have to pass the Moose test in Sweden. Any new car that gets engineered. And what I mean by that, because these cars are designed to drive literally in the Arctic Circle. One of the safety tests in engineering is they have to survive a Moose test. So they've got a big kind of battering ram that is supposed to simulate the weight and velocity that a moose can get up to, running at you straight forward, and the car just takes that thing on head on. So it's any new Volvo, that's their floor, has to be able to survive that. Even if the car is destroyed, the passengers have to walk away from it.
It's got to have to essentially crumple into a safety ball.
Right. But then Ford got a piece of them a while ago and then sold that piece to a Chinese company called Polestar. And it's not a China thing. It's not the Chinese got a hold of it, so now it's worse. It's no, it's capitalism got a hold of it, so now it's worse. And the thing is, so my car kept stalling out and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm I've got a full engine rebuild, and it kept stalling out, and I call my mechanic for the third time, and I'm you're gonna have to come get this thing again because I'm stalled out on the side of the road. And he's all right. And so I take a look under the hood this time, and I'm I don't know that much about cars, but I do have a phone, I do have AI, and I'm I think I see the problem right here. Well, my car is turbo aspirated, and the engine's aspirated, and the turbo pipe, which delivers the extra air into the engine,
turbo pipe, that's what I call it,
with the turbo boost, is completely dislodged from the engine. And I'm oh, I think I see the problem right here. And I'm I just put it back on, crank it back up, it idles great, it's wonderful. I call my guy, say I think I figured it out. I tighten the clamp back down, and I get up the road a little bit, and I'm oh, it does it again. And I'm all right. So I ended up I tighten it again, pull over, tighten it again, works again. I end up getting a Harbor, and I'm okay. I end up getting a Harbor Freight, and I'm I need some new hose clamps. And so I buy some hose clamps, and I'm this hose clamp must be just destroyed.
Effective, yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's factory. And so I just replaced the hose clamp, and it's fine. I do 100 on the highway to test it out just to make sure, and it's fine. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm I understand, and this thing is factory, and it's just one of those worm clamps. You see them on everything, right? You know what I'm talking about? The ring, and you just tighten it with the screwdriver or whatever.
A screw clamp, essentially.
And so I order a galvanized steel T clamp, which is for turbo aspirated engines, because I talked to AI, and I'm what's up with this? And AI's that's a thing that happens a lot. You shouldn't have that clamp. You should have one specifically made for for this part. And I'm thinking, this is the factory part. And I'm just my man, I'm Mr. Volvo. I don't understand. I understand if you want to go cheap on a button on the interior that's going to dry rot and crack in 5 or 6 years. Okay, fine. But you've put the cheapest piece of crap aluminum that's bendable in that on a piece that has to be connected or the car instantly dies. And that because that thing cost you 25 cents a piece instead of spending $1.50 on a galvanized steel like T-clamp that I just had to order off of, Amazon for $6. And I'm like, how dare you call yourself a luxury car at this point?
Mm-hmm.
This and even more so, it got me thinking like this car is made to drive in the Arctic Circle. So what's happening in the life of this car? It's constantly getting hot and it's getting to above boiling temperatures and it's getting to below freezing temperatures constantly all day. So this rubber and this piece of trash aluminum
expand, contract
all day long. And you decide to save a couple pennies to put the cheapest thing that I can buy at Harbor Freight on there. And I'm just like, how dare you? And the thing is, if and I don't have a problem with cheap stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you go buy a tool, like, I don't have the smoke for, like, let's say Harbor Freight. I don't have the smoke for them because if I go buy a tool at Harbor Freight and it breaks after 3 uses, I'm like, oh, well, I paid $5 for this. It's fine. I get it. If there was a car out there, like, and there is, it's called like the Tata Nano. It's like an Indian car that costs like $1,200. It's gonna fall apart, completely fall apart in 2 years. I'd be like, fair play. But it's not like you're putting these luxury, quote unquote, luxury items together, and then you're not selling them for throwaway prices, but you're creating them to throw away. I'm like, everything is a scam. I had a TikTok that went viral just like talking about GameStop the other day. And the big takeaway I was ranting about, it's like, everything is a scam. Like, nothing is just like fair value for fair money anymore. Like, you have to be, it's buyer beware, it's caveat emptor all day long. And it just takes up so much mental energy trying to figure out, well, I can't buy this because it's going to break. So let me just buy the cheapest thing possible. And this is not like a fairly new thing. As far as like, I have a little bit of knowledge about cars and like motorcycles and stuff. My mom would joke, she would be like, oh, my mom used to ride motorcycles. And she would say like, you don't want to, he's like, how these guys puff up their chest talking about Harley Davidsons. Like, you don't ever want that. She's like, if you ever ride, get a Honda like your mom does. He's like, Harley Davidson, the initials HD, it doesn't stand for Harley Davidson. It stands for $100. Because anything, and this was like 20 years ago, anything that goes wrong with that, $100 right off the rip, and it's just like, why is, the worst quality car you can get probably in the world, to be honest with you, for money, like when you compare like how much money it costs to the value you're getting, is like a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW. Any mechanic will tell you that. Those things are absolute nightmares and they're just made to throw away. And it's like,
but they're status symbols, right?
They're status, so it's like
consumption.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what it is, because they're assuming you have enough money. You're not going to keep this thing. You have enough money to just, trash it anyway. Volvo, and they still do, but I wonder how many newer Volvos. My car's not even new. It's like a 2014, but Volvo used to have the 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 mile club, to where they, if you just send in a picture of your odometer at those, they send you like a literal like metal badge that like goes in your interior.
It's like a YouTube play button.
Yeah, it is. It's a YouTube play button. That's exactly right. There's, the old turbo bricks, the things that just look like armored cars are still rolling around to this day just fine. But God forbid you buy anything in this century, in this millennium, the turn of the millennium, turn of the century, and it's maybe got a 10-year shelf life on it. And it's just disgusting. It's just made me just hate. I hate everything. I'm sorry. I hate everything. Everything's a scam. And I'm just tired of just like putting all my mental energy into this day in and day out, just trying to survive. And I have it relatively good. I have a job that I could like, oh, my car died on the side of the road today. I could call and just be like, hey, guess what? I'll be in when I'm in. I can't imagine like 20-year-old me who had like worse jobs that paid less and were just even worse. Oh my God, this would be such a crisis right now. So that's what like normal people are going through, just trying to keep their throwaway Kia Sorantos running. Because we're now in Cuba territory. You can't just like, who's going out to buy new, like car dealerships are shutting down because nobody can make a car payment. You're lucky if people have insurance. Forget a car payment. So we are now in Cuba territory to where, like, hey, I know we rant and rail against AI, but you better be using this stuff to figure out how to make the stuff you have last. When I mean, like, we're in Cuba territory, you better figure out how to, like, salvage a car part. You better figure out how to pull apart and make it work. And another reason why my car took so long to get done is because the shop I go to, like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm transferring you money through Venmo because we're not doing taxes, because it's a bunch of guys who ICE is trying to pick up. And it's like, yeah, the reason why car took so long is because ICE picked up half the mechanics at my shop. You know, it's disgusting, man. Every day I just hate America more and more and more. And I really don't even care who knows it. Like, it's not even one of those things like, oh my God, how can you say that? I could care. I was at work and I work for the city government. And I was on the phone and I was like, yeah, I hate America. Like, nothing works. I had to go to the BMV. And I was like, I had to go to the they call it the BMV here in Louisiana. I had to go to, it's the DMV everywhere else. I had to go to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles and, like, do stuff for my tag. And I just felt like I was in it was awful. It was just like, that's just an awful place to be. And I'm just like, nothing works here. Nothing works. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, the psych ward video. There's like a guy who's just like, he's like, the medication doesn't work. I've been here for 20 years. Nothing works here. It's like, I feel like that guy every single day. And it's just like, we do not have to live like this as human beings. We just need, I don't know what we need anymore. I don't even know. I have no clue, but that's my rant, since you asked me how things are going, and how things are going is not great.
Not good. Not good.
Great.
Well, everything is getting worse. And, like, it is a sort of a situation where, like, yeah, like, everything is just getting crappier. Work is getting worse. And, like, everybody knows it. And to sort of, like everybody knows it. Everybody has anxiety over it. And there essentially is the two lanes that you could go down of, like, hey, we want to actually make the world a better place, which is the socialism approach. Or you can say, well, we must, you know what the problem actually is? It's Mexican immigrants or trans people or whatever, and we have to destroy them, and that will solve all of our problems, which is the fascist approach. We're literally in what you're describing is essentially the raw materials for the failure of liberalism, which is what we're seeing before our very eyes. The Democrats have no response for there being ICE in the streets, just making people disappear, destroying communities. I mean, what is it, Taqueria Guerrero?
Yeah.
In New Orleans, is just shut
right
down
the street from my house. Yeah.
Because of because they don't want to endanger their customers, is what they're saying. And the solution is there is no solution from the liberal establishment, from the Democrats, because that's not what they do. They just sort of manage the situation or try to, like, gain their control and try to make it into such a way that, like, they can just kind of keep their agenda going, which is much more oriented towards like allowing as much fascism as they can, just a lighter version of it, and by all means necessary preventing socialism from happening.
By all means. Like, it's so crazy how we will. Yeah, I mean, this isn't rocket science. I was watching free on YouTube. You can watch the full Godfather trilogy. And I'm just like, anybody who wants to talk about, let's say, Cuba, for example, be like, well, why don't you just go to Cuba if you love it so much? Like, watch don't listen to me. Like, watch Godfather 2. And that's what I say. It's like, watch Godfather 2 and you'll see why, like, how Cuba became what it is.
They have the image of Batista's Brazil, which is Cuba, which is essentially a playground for the mob.
No, 100%. That's my two things with movies, when they're like Republicans or just chuds, just right-wing losers want to debate me. I'm like, don't listen to me. You love media. You love bread and circuses. Go watch Godfather 2 and go watch Rambo 3. And, like, those are, like, documentaries for dum-dums who don't have the time or the mental capacity to read. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. And I'm just like, yeah, communism and socialism don't work so well that we've set up whole systems to make sure that they fall instead of just letting them collapse in on themselves, since they don't work so well. You know, the communism, socialism doesn't work so well. Even SOCDEM foolishness doesn't work so well that we decided, not we, but you know what I mean, like the bankers and the capitalist class in the United States decided to throw millions upon millions of dollars to try to make sure that a SOCDEM, Zoran Mondami, couldn't take any kind of power, even just in one American city.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Like, obviously it works, because or you wouldn't be fighting so hard against it.
Hey, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
To put it into dum-dum terms again, if we were playing, if it was an NFL game and the Saints were playing the Buccaneers, and every time the Buccaneers came out to the field, they showed that they had one too many men on the field and they kept getting penalties. And that'd be like, well, the Saints would be like, well, hey, hold on, guys, make sure let's count before we come on to make sure. No, you would just make sure, you would just let them do it all day long. Mm-hmm. You would let them fall on their own, but you know this stuff works, so therefore you have to combat it. And it's like, it's just, I'm tired, bro. I'm just so tired. I'm almost, you want to talk about Nick Fuentes a little bit. We were talking about that earlier, but the thing I did see from his Piers Morgan interview is he was like, I like Adolf Hitler and I'm tired of pretending I don't. Like, said that. I'm on the other end of that. Like, socialism or barbarism, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. I'm tired of cutting around the edges. This whole thing I just described about my car, and I'm the working poor, but I'm at the top of the working poor. I can't even imagine what people who are worse off than me are going through right now. And it's like, I'm tired of pretending there's any space in this world for capitalism. I'm tired of it, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. And the sort of like the question is, how do you transition to that? I will say also this, you see some of these, I mean, obviously they're right-wing streamers, but like guys like Asmongold, who is, for people who don't know, he is a guy who like brands himself as a centrist on twitch.tv. And he like constantly will say things like that, even though he'll constantly be like, oh yeah, I'm a centrist. We need to deport all immigrants. I'm a centrist. And that's why we need to murder like these protesters in the streets. And he was watching, I saw a clip of this today. He was watching what you just described, which is Nick Fuentes on Piers Morgan saying that, Hitler's cool and I'm tired of pretending that he's not. And like, he just did the thing that he always does. He paused and he was like, based. It was just like,
but my only,
fascists aren't hiding. Why should we?
My pushback to you on that, and it's a cheeky pushback, is he not a centrist though? I would argue that he is. I would argue that, because look at our centrist Democratic Party. Look at our centrist city of New Orleans. Wow, what are we doing to throw ICE out of here? And it's like, we're not. We're just we're centrist no matter what the status quo is, therefore the status quo. So if the status quo is fascism, that's what they're going to be for. Now, they might live in, they might be Asmongold type guys who never leave their parents' basement. I mean, attic. That's one thing. And they're, somehow millionaires. But like the actual people who would, call themselves centrists, like Abundance, we talked about how I met an Abundance guy, and he's talking about, and I'm like, he's not much different. Wherever he'll flip in a heartbeat, wherever the status quo takes him. So is Asmongold really wrong there? I don't think so.
I mean, okay, so let me just sort of like reframe it. People who are, or at least like in the centrist like milieu, who describe themselves as liberals, which I guess he doesn't. But they would at least be like, well, at least they would take some kind of umbrage in how impolite it is to say the quiet part out loud.
Right.
And watching that sort of transition take place in real time, where they're, again, even if it's Nick Fuentes or even if it's this Asmongold freak, like watching them not pretend that anymore is alarming. And yeah, I agree with you in the sense that like the only response, the thing that we should have been doing in the first, I mean, we've been hosting a show called Good Morning Comrade for 6 years. So
Mhm.
we haven't exactly been hiding it very much. But like that is the only response to it is actually honestly engaging with what is the problem and what is the solution. What are the stakes out here? And what liberals often do is obscure that. They confuse it, and they say actually it's way more complicated than this. And the problem is that you have this sort of like sweeping analysis of socialism versus barbarism, where the real problem is we need to talk about zoning regulation and deregulate that. And that's how they sort of like they sort of like give like reframe the sort of fascism argument and put it into the most annoying terms that only nerds give a crap about. And they essentially say, hey, I'm an expert, you're an idiot, you don't know how this stuff works, you don't know how this stuff operates, go play with your toys in the corner, go to work, go punch clock, go smash rock, go home and like get drunk and smoke weed and play video games all day. That's what they want you to do. And give Nancy Pelosi money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and keep giving money to Act Blue. Like that's what they want, and it's death by PowerPoint is what it is. They're boring you to death. They're boring you into fascism. Yep, we're gonna spend so much time, debating the problem and all the ways that I was talking again. This abundance guy, like I'm talking, he's all these like checkpoints that I have to go through to be like, oh, until I have the perfect argument of how we're going to solve the housing crisis or whatever, issue that we have going on, then I should be focused on that. And we shouldn't even be talking about if there is actually a thing and who's causing it. And I'm like, I know what this is, bro. I have a corporate job. Mm-hmm. This is death by PowerPoint. Please stop. I'm not stupid. Even when I was in the Marine Corps, I had a corporate job. Mm-hmm. Like, please stop it. Like, this isn't getting anything done. And again, I've said this on the show before, like there's a maxim in the Marine Corps there's a couple things about like tactics, about how you should plan anything that really do ring true and you should hold on to. But one of those things was, if you have a battle plan and you have all the planning in the world, but the planning can be completely correct, but you don't exercise the plan with zeal, it has no chance of success. But if you have a bad plan, but you execute it with zeal, that has a chance of success. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's like, this is 100% accurate. How many times I've been like, well, I'm just going to take, in your own personal life, you'd be like, I'm just going to try. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, F&A, like it worked out because we just tried. Mm-hmm. But if we're sitting here in constant meetings that should have been emails mm-hmm. about where we should put public housing and affordable housing in the country, then guess what? Like nobody's going to get housing. Instead of just saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have, city-run grocery stores, or we're going to do free childcare. Maybe we miss. Maybe we don't get those things at all. But if we're shooting, to use another soliloquy, a maxim, whatever you want to call it, if we're shooting for the moon and we miss, we'll at least hit the stars. Mm-hmm. And it's just so obvious what the game is with these people, and they just play you like you're stupid. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean 100%. And again, like it's sometimes it's intentional. Actually, probably most of the time it's not intentional. Maybe it is, but like it does in situations. I know some situations it is, some situations it isn't. So, like for example, in organization like DSA, like part of the less effective chapters that I've seen, or a lot of the periods in some of these sort of situations, is when they're less effective, they're discussing like, oh, what's the process by which we're going to do this? Exactly. How are we, getting membership feedback or whatever, which like, I'm not against any of that stuff necessarily, but like, if you use like lack of a process as a reason to not, for example, like engage in a time-sensitive campaign, like knocking doors for a candidate or supporting this picket line or whatever. The Break Light Clinic, like mm-hmm. Not to steal but just to steal man you, my piece of crap father, who's like the biggest, like, oh, well, he'll tell you a million ways. You know, he's not even political, but it's the same mindset. So where he'll tell you a million ways about what cannot be done with giving you no solution on how to do anything. And it's like, when I told him about the New Orleans DSA brake light clinic, it stunned him because he had nothing to say. And he's like, that's pretty good. He goes, yeah. He's like, wow, I could see how that works. And it's like, it's just an idea of just being like, we can meet a need. We can do it. We don't have to have a million committees about it. And that's
there was a committee, but
but once the decision's made, it was made. Sure, there was a committee. There always has to be some meeting.
Somebody's got to plan it, right? But I will say this too, like again, I'm not against the idea of like discussing these kinds of things. And it's not like brake light clinics changed the world or anything, but they did at least like put out an idea that says
they changed the world more than a million committee meetings.
Sure. But I guess my point is that like it was essentially acting on something, and when you do act on something, you can walk away from it and have a lesson learned. Even if it's a failure, you walk away from it, you can have a lesson learned. If you don't do that, if you just like argue, get back and forth and whatever, I'm not saying you have to say yes to everything, obviously, but if you don't do that, then you cannot come away from that situation and be like, well, this is what we should do next time. It's just, we didn't do it. You know, never going to talk about it again. There's no sauce there. There's no substance. It's just a bunch of guys in a room yapping at each other.
Exactly. It's just
guys, gals, and non-binary pals.
I mean, I would say, what you're saying is like, you really do kind of have to separate from the people who like are actively wreckers, you know, the wrecker behavior, than people who are actually like in good faith. But like at the end of the day, if you don't get those people in good faith to put one foot in front of the other and start making moves, it's the same as the end result is same as wrecker behavior. It's the same. And I'm tired, and I just don't. That's why it's like, oh, you know, poor what's her face? I like her a lot. Oh my God, your friend from LA, right? What's her name?
Alex.
I like Alex a lot, but she's like, and I don't think she's wrong. I think she's right. She's like, it looks like you need to get joined back into the DSA. And I'm like, Alex, if you know, I want to be like, if it was you running it, absolutely. But I don't know what they got going on in there, because I'm just tired, bro.
This is something funny, and I don't mean to talk too much crap, but I do think this is sort of silly. There is a effort for them to like, oh no, Shell is a sponsor of French Quarter Fest, or Chevron is a sponsor of French Quarter Fest. We need to stop that. And I'm just like, I mean, yeah, I hate Shell, but like, who cares if they're a sponsor for French Quarter Fest? That's just like a sticker on the thing. Like, and also if you are successful in getting them out, who's to say it won't like bankrupt French Quarter Fest? You just don't have it, and then all the normies are mad at you.
I'll push back on that and say like, I'm fine with that, because if you're going to do something that maybe doesn't have a ton of material gain, but it will grab headlines and get more attention. That's the going back to my dad. So my dad used to like sell he used to sell stuff at like craft shows. Like he used to like make crafts or whatever. And his thing was like, you never, like, if you ever go to like an art gallery or a craft show or something, there's artists who always have like a $5,000 piece. Well, that's just to get them in the door, but you're really trying to sell the $20 piece. And so if saying like, hey, we are, you know, we're going to rail against a Shell sponsoring French Quarter Fest, if that gets them in the door, then that gets them in the door, and we can do that. So that's as long as we're doing something else. That's why I don't like that's why I'm not like, you know, protests or whatever. And I'm like, the thing about a protest, that's fine. It's, you know, any kind of protest that's that is the police are clearing the way for is no longer a protest. It's a parade. I understand that. It's fine. It's not going to do anything. But what are you doing with the people? What are you doing with the people who show up? Are you funneling them to things that actually matter and to things that will actually material benefit stuff that isn't as sexy? Then your protest was a success. It was just to show up and just be like, we did it, guys. You know, we did it, Joe. Then your protest sucks. And I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I do have smoke. WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3, and I will say I might be talking a little bit out of school on this one, but I do think it's important to like at least be thinking about this because not a lot of people realize that in Seattle, this is while Zoran Mamdani was, having his whole big thing, and like basically, 90% of DSA decided to organize behind that and bolster this campaign that was by no means perfect. But there was also a socialist that like won her election for mayor in Seattle, and as far as I can tell, like
Carmen Schwant.
No, she's silly. I'm not
okay.
a big fan.
I don't know.
No, I can get into that. But
you say Seattle socialist. That's
no. Her name is Katie Wilson. She's like a democratic socialist, is how she described herself. And apparently, and again, I'm piecing this together, and if somebody from anywhere is listening and wants to talk about it a little bit more, I'm definitely down to do it. But from what I've pieced together, essentially, the DSA there, like she's not a member, but they did not get behind her. They didn't endorse her, and apparently it was in part because like she wasn't sufficiently on their line on Palestine. She said it wasn't going to say exactly what they wanted to say or whatever, and she made she didn't make the requisite commitments by these marginal socialist organizations on homeless sweeps, even though she said she was like against them or whatever. And so they just decided to have no relationship with this mayor, who ended up winning her election. So now, I mean, maybe that was the right thing to do at the time, maybe it wasn't. But like now they just essentially have a socialist mayor of your city, or somebody who calls herself a socialist, and you have no relationship with you. So like you become essentially a useless, like an appendix. You're not okay.
These are real questions. Like I'm not 100. Like these aren't. I'm not telling you things. I'm asking not rhetorical questions. If the Seattle DSA, if whatever she was doing bumps up against one of their red lines, then you just have to live with that.
Well, you have to ask the question: is their red line reasonable or attainable, and other things like that as well?
Yeah, but it is their red line though to decide. So if paying members decide that that's their red line, then that's just the choices they have to live with. I'm not saying it is or not. If this isn't a thing that like their membership could deal with, then there should have never been this hubbub about it. They should have just rolled with her. But if it is, then it is what it is. I think in this part, in as far as not the party, but there is no party. But as far as like socialism, communism, leftist thought, theory, whatever, if it should be a big tent with electric fences, and as soon as you brush up against one of those electric fences, we can't deal with you anymore. That's just the way it goes. And so you'd have to answer for me, was that one of their things? And then if it is, why? And then the members, the rank and file, have to make that decision.
Well, I'm not so sure how that process went out, and which is why I'm sort of like from where I'm sitting, from where I'm at, and what I've pieced together through like discussion boards and Reddit threads and social media posts, because there's not a whole lot of information about that. Like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to have a socialist mayor of your city and you're a socialist organization and you're not a part of it, you need to have a pretty clear messaging as to why that's not the case. Not just for your members, but for like people who are outside looking at it, prospective members, people who might join your organization, and they might have these same questions in their head about this, because they, I think it's important if you're going to be making these kinds of decisions, or if you're going to be, taking these positions, that, again, it's your backyard, that's your wheelhouse, then you got to address it. And it also is a very, very strange look, because I did look at some of the Seattle social media stuff, like specifically the official account from the Seattle DSA, and they were like, hey, you need to join Seattle DSA because of Zoran Mamdani over in New York City. And it's just like, what?
Oh, that's silly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my take.
No, you're right. That's 100% silly, because if you are, I mean, I understand the DSA themselves, like, is a SOCDEM organization. I have my problems with SOCDEMs, but I could still see, I mean, I say this all the time, like, it's kind of like the Bernie Warren, thing back in 2016. Like, Elizabeth Warren is a clown and a snake, but if I could press the button, the Elizabeth Warren is president button, and make that happen, I would do that. And the same thing with, like, I'm not a fan of a social democracy. I'd rather just have full-blown gay space communism. But if I could hit the SOCDEM button and have that today, and people wouldn't die because of lack of health care, then I would hit that button and make that happen today. But
obviously,
if the DSA is what it is, and I'm willing to accept it is what it is, as long as they are moving in a direction that's gonna make people's lives better. But if they're sitting up here saying, oh, we have to, like, ride the Zoran wave, but then they're gonna, if what you're telling me, if that's accurate, but we have to, like, shun our own, like, local SOCDEM, that's stupid. Because, like, every DSA chapter is going to be different. Like, they, you talk about, like, missing out on access to power. Some of these, like, don't even want, some of these chapters don't even want electoral power. They want to be a thorn in the side of electoral politics. Which, okay, if that's what your members decided, that's what they decided. But you can't have it both ways. Like, I think that's reasonable. I think that's a reasonable position I'm taking, and I don't even consider myself a reasonable person.
I will say this too. I just noticed this as I brought up the social media post, which is from Seattle DSA. It's just basically them doing what I said. We are the hope. Join the largest and fastest growing socialist party. The one reply on this entire social media account is the mayor-elect, who was not endorsed by the local chapter, as far as I can tell, who just did 3 fire emojis.
So funny.
So maybe she's trying to, like, make nice or something like that. I just don't see anything about it or anything. So I do think it's strange, but I also do think that it is cool that at least she's being, at least on that sense, friendly towards the organization, which is I think a good thing.
Sure.
It's not like it's not.
I mean, what does she get by, like, cold shouldering? And you got to think about it like this: like, what does she gain by, And we do have to start, before I say what I'm going to say, like, you have to start thinking about this in, like, Machiavellian, pragmatic terms. If we're really talking about electoral politics, if we're going to go that lane, what does she gain by, like, cold shouldering the DSA? Like, she doesn't gain much. She doesn't gain much by, like, having them as an ally, but she doesn't gain anything by having them as an enemy either. Because the people who want to run the DSA out of Seattle or whatever, they're gonna do that regardless. They're not gonna be like, oh, well, she didn't heart emoji the DSA post, therefore she's on our side.
And if she does do something, like, goes after them, or just like, oh yeah, that not a good look, she'll be accused of left punching or whatever. Yeah, and it's just like it'll be annoying regardless. So you might as well be cool,
Right. And it's kind of like why I don't, I have all the problems with, PSL, DSA, whoever, but it's just it makes no point. It makes no difference to, like, punch down like that. And, like, let's be real about it. Like, the DSA, if God bless all due paying DSA members. But if the DSA was going to do something, in our lifetime, I believe their moment passed when the first Trump election, they were kind of at their height and they couldn't get it together and become, an actual, like, tastemaker in American politics.
Well, again, like, I don't think it's about becoming a tastemaker. It's about having the ability to organize so much that you have an impact on either an election or, union drives or campaigns or whatever. And, if you're going to be, and we talked about this ourselves in the past, they have been able to get, different electeds done in New York City and throughout New York and also across the country. That is going to be something that's going to take a certain amount of time. And these moments, these sort of, like, high moments where they have this sort of, seeming leverage will come and they will go. And, I think that we're kind of on, especially with Zoran, another one of those sort of, like, one of those big sort of, like, upswings. And now, I don't think you're going to change the entire political system of this country one in like in one of these swings, it's going to have to be something that is going to take over time. I will say at some point though, there is going to be a like a lot of this is happening with like again using some of the using like the Democratic Party as a ballot line or whatever, or using some of that infrastructure. At some point, like there is going to be a hard sort of push against by these liberal establishments where they will go and side with the fascists in a very direct manner. And I think the question becomes, how do you become independently viable, be it with the mechanisms that you have currently or by creating your new mechanism? I actually don't have an opinion on which one it is. I think, but like, how do you become independently viable before that sort of like, before they try to throw you through the barbershop window? You know what I mean?
Sure, no, 100%. But like, let's don't kid ourselves either. That's not exactly what DSA National was trying to do in like 2016, 2020.
2016, the organization was barely existed. It was like,
I'm sorry. Okay, so like 2020. I'm thinking of like the last, when like I'm thinking of like when New York Times was doing like all these pieces about the DSA and oh my God, this is such a rise. Like they're on the ascendancy. That's what National like wanted. That National wanted to be players in electoral politics. So it's like the individual chapters. Yeah, I can't speak on them, but like let's don't kid ourselves. Is like that's what they wanted, and that time because they couldn't get it together, whatever it is, I don't know. That time is gone. That time is past.
I'm not sure that it is. I think that an opportunity has passed in that moment. I think more opportunities could come, and it might not even necessarily be for an organization like DSA. It might be coming through somewhere else. However, I do think, and this is why I think DSA as an organization is important, is that at least as far as organizations exist, as far as socialist organizations exist, DSA is the biggest one, and it has the most influence. It has the most sort of like status in terms of like number of elected a number of elected officials. There are existing relationships with labor unions within DSA. We have also a partnership with the Emergency Workers Organizing Committee, which is essentially I mean, I'm a member of the local one here in Richmond, and they have, they're all active all across the country. They're essentially a support group that like essentially takes leads from workers. They fill out like a lead generation form, and then these organizers will come in and support them in organizing their workplace, from teaching them organizing skills and how to talk to your coworkers, to mapping things out, to even getting them in contact with an established union if that's what these workers want. And I think that is a viable path forward. That is a viable path towards building power that I don't know of any other organization outside of just labor unions that are doing anything like that. You know what I mean?
All right. I mean, I can have no retort to that. Like, you know these things better than I do. Like, you're on the ground. I'm only like, honestly, like life has been so hectic for me. It's like I can't even keep up anymore. I feel like a normie. I feel like my favorite hobby of just watching the left eat itself is I can't.
That will always be something that you can find. However, I am happy to report that the right is currently eating itself.
I mean, that's kind of my fear, is that we don't get societal collapse because the right is eating itself
again,
and we don't get our like Star Trek Warp 1 moment to where we just all hold hands and be like, yeah, we can't live like this anymore because the left is eating itself. And it's very much French Revolution coded. It's like the liberals win again because they will just keep on marching. And while both the both sides cannot get it together, the Jacobins lost control because they were all guillotining each other. And so only the liberals who played the game succeeded in France. And then within, a decade or so, they went back to an emperor. They went to Napoleon. So it's like, yeah, liberals win again. I don't know.
That's sort of like permanently the danger. So like they end up essentially, again, Napoleon himself was he was essentially, I mean, essentially like a social democratic liberal, at least by the time. And he was just the one that was bold enough to actually like engage with the military and actually say, you know what, we need to bring stability to this situation. Right now, both the left and the right, probably the far right, I would say, and the sort of like non-democratic party left, the sort of like outside of that, both are essentially in the business of creating as much instability as possible. And there's a not insignificant amount of the right-wing establishment party that is also grafted onto that. When it comes to, again, the Democrats, they want that stability. They want to essentially be that Napoleon, and they want to start firing. They can't wait to start firing the whiff of grape shot on their own people. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And that's my fear, is that, and I say, you'd be like, what are you sitting here talking about societal collapse? And it's like, what? My fear is that, I mean, in the short term, the collapse of socialism, the collapse of capitalism is going to kill millions of people worldwide until we get something that's a stopgap. But my long-term fear as far as humanity is that somebody will finally figure it out. It's what Tim Dillon says, and like, I don't, Tim Dillon's nothing, but his thing of like, we used to, and what he says when I'm talking about this very thing is very accurate. When he says, we used to not worry about, how many brown kids we were drone striking or killing, or fake wars that we were lying ourselves into, as long as there was 2 cars in every garage and I had a white picket fence. And like, somebody will figure that out and go, look, look, capitalists, like, we have to, you got to, that's Bernie. That's what Bernie, taking Bernie, a sober look at Bernie, that's what he was trying to do.
Well, it's that. Well, Bernie is doing that, and also you see at the exact same time that like that is what Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson, a lot of these right wingers. I mean, like, Democrats look like insane people right now. Like Jasmine Crockett just decided that she was going to run for Senate in Texas. She is a like to the core defender of Israel, and like there has been a obviously it's been something that's been ongoing for many years, ever since the West got involved in Palestine and resettling, the creating essentially a quote unquote Jewish state. But like in the past 2 years, it's become fairly, not just undeniable, it has become like popular in the public consciousness that the United States is funding a genocide in Gaza. There has never been a period in my entire lifetime where I can remember where popular sentiment was F Israel more. It's never been higher. And you still have Democrats who are justifying that and these are like highly influential Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Speaker of the House, or the top ranking Democrat in the House. He wants to be the Speaker of the House, and he might become the Speaker of the House in a couple of years. But like they're essentially going as hard as they can, riding for this genocide, that it becomes so easy for somebody who is like as dumb as Marjorie Taylor Greene,
right,
or as cynical as Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes, and they're doing it not for good reasons. They do it because they don't want Jews here, or they want they want to spend the money that we're spending on Israel to create even bigger and stronger ICE that will destroy the immigrants in this country and all this other stuff. But they are essentially, and this is a huge part of the problem, and this is why it is very important to have left pro-Palestine voices out there, ones that are very frequently marginalized in mainstream media, like Marjorie Taylor Greene was just on 60 Minutes a couple of days ago because of her positions on these kind of things and her actions. I mean, she's quitting Congress and all this other stuff. Like, there is a real danger, essentially, of the solution to this coming from the white nationalist right, which is essentially going to create like an isolationist, fascist America, I guess you could say, that is going to essentially expel as many immigrants as possible. And obviously, it's not going to stop there. I mean, they have been going after transgender people since forever. They want to come after gay people or whatever it is, because that is a suitable replacement for them. Because and again, this is why liberals are okay with it. If you're doing race war, then you're not doing class war. That's
Right.
why they constantly focus on Trump doing fascism and all these other things. And I'm not even saying that Trump isn't a fascist and he isn't doing fascism or whatever. What I'm saying is emphasizing on that constantly is a way to focus on simply that and not deal with the thing that you opened this show talking about, which is capitalism just closing its grip on all of our society. So the liberals kind of get it both ways. They get to have they get to have the fascism happen by the fascists, and they get to also be like, oh no, they're doing the fascism. And then you also completely ignore, or you can always sort of like kick the can down the road. Oh, you don't need health care. Oh, you don't need, better living conditions. We can't deal with any of that right now because we're dealing with fascism. You know what I mean? You're muted.
No, I know. No, that's exactly. We're saying the same thing, and like eventually somebody's going to get it right. And I say this now, again, I'm a government employee, and like our outgoing mayor, I can say this now because she's outgoing. Whatever, I don't care anymore, dude. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people got fired on my job over Charlie Kirk, and now it's a meme. Like,
Charlie Kirk!
Nothing cares. Nothing matters anymore. But like, she could have all her indiscretions, like that she's done, if like the streetcars ran on time, and the city wasn't like bankrupt, and it didn't cost you as a 44-year-old man $250 a month to get car insurance, or people could afford home insurance here, which nobody has, and we live in Hurricane Alley. But like we could like all that could be forgiven. If the trains ran on time, Trump could be I mean this. I mean, I'm being cynical, but I'm being 100% honest. I'm not even joking. Trump could be a pedophile, warmonger, war criminal who had sexual relations with Bill Clinton, if there were a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage, dude, that was paid off. No one would care. And eventually somebody's going to figure that out. And like you said, it's going to be the most evil thing .
Well, it doesn't have to be, but it is likely going to be if we continue down the road that we're on. I will also kind of say that, like,
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm sitting here wearing Palestine stamps shirt, and like, if material conditions in this country weren't what they were, I can tell you 100%, 10 toes down, nobody except the same group of leftists, like Michael Brooks leftists, who cared about Palestine 10, 20, 30 years ago, would be the only people caring about Palestine now.
Oh yeah,
it's just a matter of fact.
And quite frankly, and I do think Bernie, this is probably one of the better things about how Bernie has handled this, despite the fact that he's not done it perfectly. He has actually engaged in a little bit of the same rhetoric as some of these America First or freakazoids by saying that, like, hey, the reason we don't have healthcare in this country, obviously he's like Marjorie Taylor Greene's not talking about universal healthcare in this country, but like part of the reason that we don't have healthcare in this country is because we're giving billions of dollars to Israel. When I remember when even like Obamacare, they were like debating over like the sticker shock of that or whatever. That is a drop in the bucket,
right?
Compared to what they send, what they not just send to Israel, but like the war machine more generally and more broadly. Like how much money have they spent on the F-35? How much money have they spent on this, they've given, was it Lockheed Martin? They've given them so much, like trillions of dollars to develop this plane that can't even fly in the rain. Like it's nutty, dog.
It's trash. Like, and there
Hello,
would
lost
be
you.
I'm still here. You hear
Okay.
me? But going back to my, you know, if that's too highfalutin, what Jeff just said for people, tell people to go watch. It's not about the F-35. It's about the military's previous boondoggle, which was the Osprey, which is a fixed wing rotor VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing
Harrier, kind of.
which they still have, but it sucked. It sucked, and it was killing Marines because of how bad it sucked, and they were falling out of the sky. Go watch the Nicolas Cage movie Snake Eyes. That's exactly what it's about. And like, it's about a guy who like discovers the Marine Corps general, whatever, selling out the Marine Corps to the military industrial complex because it doesn't matter if it worked. You know, it's RoboCop. It's RoboCop in the Ed 209. Watch RoboCop when the head of OCP.
Yeah, lost you for a second. But I will say this, just sort of like before we shut it down. And I thought this was the craziest thing. We don't have any time to talk about it. You just mentioned RoboCop. They literally just put up a statue of RoboCop in Detroit, which is so funny.
They've been working on that for like 20 years.
They finally got it up, and it's just literally one of those like life imitating art situations, if you know what I mean. It's like a reverse of art imitating life. It is life imitating art. We live in the fascist like Detroit that is run by the corporation OCP, and like we now have a RoboCop statue. It's
I can tell you a little bit of a guy who followed that for
1 minute
all that time. Yeah, he's a guy who owns some kind of a company. It's like not, but he literally called it Omni Consumer Products. He just loves RoboCop, and then he got that crowdfunded, and like I'm for it, like because it's like it's a thing that like will not portray you. Like I love RoboCop. I think like when people, you can't trust people here in the real world, you have to look to fiction for your heroes.
Yeah, and also we can agree, I think, on this that Paul Verhoeven thought is undefeated.
Oh, absolutely. Even Showgirls is a good movie.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. This has been your weekly Good Morning Comrade. Robert, what's up with the Lumicast?
Oh, I don't know, bro. I'm too tired to do anything. I'm on Twitch. I'm on YouTube as Lumicast. Check it out. Subscribe. It's good times. But I probably won't get back to cracking at it till the new year because I'm just, real life is just kicking me bad.
Yeah, well, and then you can listen to GMC every Saturday on WHIV FM 102.3. You can also go to we need to update our website, by the way. I just checked it, and it's super like effed up. So we need to check it out. So, but goodmorningcomrade.com, you can get the links to all of our stuff, our YouTube, our Twitter, our Twitch, all that kind of stuff, and also other ways to support. Thank you so much for listening to Good Morning Comrade. You can follow me on Twitter at Eminent Prof. I am Jeff. This is WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. We love you. Bye-bye.